What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be showing you two handguns, one striker fired, the P10C, and one hammer fired, the P07, both from CZ. Let's check it out. Alright guys, like the intro said, both of these handguns are from CZ. Again, this is a comparison between a striker fired gun and a hammer fired gun. What I like about each one of them and some of the differences, maybe that'll help you decide if you want to carry a hammer fired pistol or whether you want to carry a striker fired pistol. Now let's dive up close. Alright guys, let's start things off with looking at this P10C. I think one of my favorite things about it, aside from the ergonomics, is the trigger. So, again, this is a striker fired handgun. The trigger, very little take up for a striker fired gun, has a super solid crisp wall, breaks right at about 4.5 pounds, very consistent. Out of the box, I found that this handgun had a great trigger and it just got better and better over time. Again, little take up wall, breaks super crisp. Now, in comparing that with the P07 being a hammer fired gun, obviously when you rack around, the P07 does have the decocker from the factory, but it does have an option to switch this out for a safety. So you would carry it in the cocked and locked position if you had a safety, and then you would depress it and you get your single action. Now, with your decocked option, you would chamber it, decock, and then from here you're going to have a double action pull, which is your take up there and about a good 12-pound pull until it breaks over. And what some folks dislike about the double action to single action is the fact that you then have two completely different breaks with the trigger. So you have that heavy double action and that very light single action. Specific to the P07, that single action is almost so light that it's hard to find a defined wall. Let's try that again. See, quite a bit of take up, and then that, I think I'm at the wall, yeah, and then right there, a little bit of creep too. Wall, little bit of creep, brakes. That brake is pretty light. I would say that's right at around 3 pounds. So that's the differences in the trigger. You have a very heavy double action, not terrible for a double action pistol, but it's heavy in comparison to the P07, or excuse me, the P10C. And again, I think with the P10C, that wall is a lot more defined and that brake is quite a bit more crisp than it is with the single action P07. I mean, it's there and it's doable, but it definitely takes some getting used to. All right, now one other thing that I wanted to compare is the difference in the slides. Now, much like every other striker fired polymer handgun, this has a standard slide system, just like takedown in the Glock 19, come back a little bit, depress, forward, and you can see standard slide on top of frame. Now, the difference being with the P07 is that, as you can see, the slide sits inside of the frame. Now, the benefit of that is it lets that slide sit lower into your hand and creating a lower bore axis to mitigate the recoil and not have so much flip, as opposed to that slide coming straight back. Now, with that hammer, there's only so much they can do in terms of how high the frame and the slide set. So I think that was a good design by CZ by bringing that slide inside of the frame to bring that bore axis down and to mitigate that recoil. However, what I find is that with dry hands, I don't really have any issue getting a hold of that slide. But recently when I was out on the range, and I'm going to post some video in here as well, I got a little sweaty and I could not for the life of me get a grip on that slide. It was just too small and not enough to hold on to rack it back, and I actually ended up putting my front sight and the front of the slide on the table and having to rack that round to get her going again. So that, to me, is a bit of a detriment. If you're in a stressful situation, palms start sweating, if you had a malfunction, that could be detrimental. With the P10C, now I have shot this gun a considerable amount more than I have the P07, but I feel like in general that slide and that spring weight is a lot lighter than the slide is. This seems to lock up and just be a little bit tighter than the P10C is, and with that smaller slide, or the more of the slide inside the frame and less to hold on to, makes it just that much harder to rack the firearm. All right, in terms of grip, as you can see, my P10C, I have stippled it. From the factory, it has this kind of pineapple texture on here. I didn't like it. I thought if anything, it was too aggressive and bit into my hands too much. And it wasn't so much that it hurt, it just never felt comfortable, kind of like a pebble in your shoe. And then with the P07, I think that the texture is fine where it is textured. However, it looks like they left this part out for some reason, and that is where I put a lot of purchase, like most shooters. So I think it's a little bit lacking in the texture department. I don't know if I'm going to end up stippling this or not, but I have to say, even from the factory, this had a better grip to it than the P07 did. The frame is a little bit narrower too. Frame on the P07 is a bit blockier, especially the width from the one side of the slide to the other, and then one side of the frame to the other, right here in the middle, than the P10C is. The P10C is probably one of the more ergonomic handguns that I've shot. Oh, one other thing with the ergonomics of these handguns, both of them come with removable back straps. With the P10C, like I said, I did stipple it, so it's probably going to be a little more difficult if I ever wanted to switch the back straps out. But from the factory, they both come with removable back straps that you can swap out sizes. Along with the ergonomics, I'd like to point out that the slide releases on both handguns are dramatically different. Slide release for the P10C, very, again, Glock reminiscent. Chambering, or excuse me, loading a magazine, the lever is right there. I don't have any issue hitting it. Again, it's fairly intuitive. Thumb just kind of rests on it when I do my mag change, and it sends home. However, with the P07, again, this is your decocker, so that's a bit of a stretch up there. Now, it looks like I can hit it just fine. However, pushing from here, you almost want to hit the decocker. And in fact, when I first started using this handgun, a lot of times I was pushing the decocker because that's exactly where the slide release is on the P10C. So I caught myself doing this and then having to reach over the top of the decocker to send the slide home on the P07. So it is something that's a manual of arms that you can train around. I mean, if you were going to use this as your primary handgun, eventually I'm sure you would get used to it. You'd have to adjust. You can adjust your grip a little bit. I think that's not terrible. Again, that's just more of a practice thing. Or you can do kind of like the Terran Tactical method, which is to load your magazine and then come up with your support hand and drop your slide home that way. No full ambi slide release on the P07, and again, I think that the whole release thing can be overcome unless you have super short thumbs. You may have to retrain to kind of do that Terran Tactical method of dropping the slide with your support hand. In terms of the sights, they are pretty well almost identical, very, very subtle differences in the two. The P07 being just slightly narrower, but I think for the most part, they are similar enough to not be saying one is better than the other. The P10Cs look a little bit taller in the rear, a little bit larger of a rear sight block than the P07, but again, both of them are very similar. They are night sights. They're not true night sights. They're not tritium. When you do get some light on them, like we've got here, and then let's see if we can switch this off. You do get that glow from the sights when they charge from ambient light. Okay, for both mag releases, they're very similar. The P07 maybe being a touch more prominent, sticking out of the frame than the P10C. I have never had an issue with dropping either one of these. There were some reports that early generations of the P10C had a very stiff ambidextrous mag release, but I believe that they made some corrections to that. When I purchased mine about a year ago, I had no issues. Mags dropped free just fine. Okay, I also wanted to note with these CZ handguns, both of them, when you depress the magazine release, the mags actually pop out of the frame as opposed to just being released and having to drop free with gravity. They actually have like a spring tension that pushes them out of the frame. And the best part is striker fired handgun, hammer fired handgun, but they share the same magazines. That is an awesome, awesome idea by CZ. I think this is a great idea because then you can kind of attract both parties. Whether you like striker fired or you like hammer fired better, I think that it is important to have the skill set or training to know the manual arms of both and be able to operate both platforms. So that was very smart on CZ's part by opening the door to that by making a hammer fired and striker fired gun that accept the same magazines. All right, one other thing that's important to mention is that with the P07 and P10C, they do have slightly different rail systems or accessory rail systems, with the P07 having 3 notches and the P10C having 1 notch. But if you've watched my previous video about the Enforce APLC, they will accept the same weapon light, which is fantastic. So I think that, again, was a great idea on CZ's part. All right, guys, now is the time in the video to pause for just a moment, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, go over to the channel, check out some more of my videos. I will appreciate it greatly. Again, thanks for watching. Let's get back to the video. All right, guys, in terms of reliability, I've definitely shot the P10C more than the P07. The P10C, again, is my regular carry gun. P07 I've had for a little while, but I'm just kind of working into it, trying to get used to that trigger. Again, shot more with the P10C, but still shot a considerable amount with the P07. Both have been very reliable. If I have any malfunctions, I will update the video on the P07. Okay, guys, at the end of the day, I think you're getting a good weapon with both platforms here. Again, smart on CZ's part to make both handguns so similar. If you're a striker fire guy, I think you'll still like the P07. If you're a hammer fire guy, I think you'll definitely still like the P10C. It all comes down to personal preference, in my opinion. Now, for me, I like the P10C just a little bit more than the P07. Partly due to the fact that I can shoot this more accurate than I can the P07, but that might come with time and could be subject to change. The reason that I am working with the P07 and trying to bring that into my carry rotation is the safety of having that hammer. I carry appendix, and when you have that hammer in the quarter-cocked position, you get that double action, heavier trigger pull, which if you're going to carry appendix, I think is a little bit safer. And then when you are holstering that handgun, you can put your thumb over the hammer so that if something were to catch on that trigger in your holster, you could feel that hammer coming back and push it forward, pull your gun out of the holster and find out what the issue is, as opposed to with the P10C, if something is catching on that trigger, you're not going to know it until it goes bang. So again, with the P07, it's more of a safety thing. That's why I'm trying to bring it into my rotation. Right now, my personal taste is I like shooting the P10C a little bit more. But again, try them both out. For me, it turned out me buying both of them, being happy with both of them. But at the end of the day, again, I think CZ was smart making both of these handguns so similar and cross-compatible. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it. Again, I think at the end of the day, you're getting a great handgun no matter what. CZ has a lot to offer. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you on the next one. Keep shooting.